In the previous video, we saw the for loop in C# and how we could iterate the elements of an array with it, which you can see in this code here as well. But there's also another loop used exclusively to loop through elements of an array, and this is the foreach loop. This is what we'll see in this video, how the foreach loop works, but we'll also see the limitation that it has when compared to the for loop. The foreach loop provides a simple and a clean way to loop through the elements of an array. Firstly, I'm just gonna comment this for loop here out by just writing Ctrl plus K plus C in the keyboard at the same time, so that we just have it in the background as a reference. And underneath, we are gonna start to write the for each loop. Firstly, we just need to write the for each keyword. And then inside parentheses, we need to specify a temporary variable, which will have the type of the elements of the array, which is chars in this case. We will give a name to this temporary variable, and then we write the in keyword, and then the name of the array that we are looping through. Basically, this temporary variable holds the value of the element associated with the current iteration. In the first iteration, the grade variable holds the value of the first element of the array, or the value of the letter A in our case, and so on. And what this for each loop does is that it takes each element of the array, starting from the first one, and then in increasing order, and for each one of them, it executes the block of code that we will write below. So here inside curly braces, we'll write this console.writeLine method, and we'll print out of the console each element of the array by just writing grade, this temporary variable grade there. And what this code will do is we'll do the same thing as the for loop did before, so it will print out to the console each element of our array. We will do different things with the for each loop. I'm just taking an integer array below so that we will do some different things with integers. I'm just taking an integer array, naming it my numbers, and I'm giving some value to the elements of this array, like 30, 55, 66, I don't know, 78. And I'm gonna need also another variable here down below, an integer variable. I'm naming it sum, and I'm giving it a value of 0 at first. Then we'll write the for each loop here. I'm going to declare a temporary variable of integers, which is the type of the elements of the array. I'm naming it number, this in keyword, and the name of the array that we're looping through. So inside curly braces here, in each iteration, I want to add to the sum variable the value of the current element of the array by writing here this number variable. So at the end, this sum variable will have the sum of all of the elements of our array. And after the loop ends here, I'm just gonna need to print out to the console this sum variable so that we will see what value it will have. If I run the program here at the end we see 229, which is the sum of all of these elements. Just delete this part here, and what we'll see now is we will see the difference between the for each loop and the for loop, or the one limitation that the for each loop has. If you would want, for example, to reassign a value in this array of elements inside the for each loop, I'm just using here an if statement. So in case the element, this grade variable, is equal to, let's say, A, the letter A, inside curly braces here, we can reassign it. We'll try to reassign this grade, this element of the array, with another letter that we haven't used before, let's say Z. And we see that there's an error there. If I run the program, we'll also see the error here. So cannot assign to grade because it is a for each iteration variable. And this is actually for every for each loop, we cannot reassign or modify the elements of that array inside the for each loop. But what would happen if we would try to do this inside the for loop above? I'm just uncommenting this out by clicking Control plus K plus U in the keyboard at the same time. And here I'm just gonna try to copy this code here. Inside the for loop, I'm just gonna need to change the name or access the elements of the array by just writing here grades, the name of the array, and we'll access the elements of it by writing square brackets and this I variable, this index of the elements. And inside the for each loop below, I'm just gonna use it to print out to the console the grades, each element of the array by just writing console.writeLine grade. So the first loop would just reassign the value of A to Z, and the second loop, the for each loop, will just print out to the console each element of the array. And as we can see here, the elements of the array are printed out to the console, and Z is the A element, the first element is reassigned to Z. So these two loops are very similar with each other. In some cases, the for each loop is the better choice since the code is cleaner and shorter, but depending on each case, as you saw here, you should use the for loop if you want to modify the content of the array. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more content, and I will see you in the next one.